Hello again, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about how it all goes downhill for the narcissist. It really does. Every single thing in their lives, guys, goes downhill as they get older. Their demise happens bit by bit, gradually, sometimes quickly, but usually gradually over the course of time. There are numerous ways that this happens, and I'm going to talk about that today. Stick around for the final one because it really is something that I think bothers a lot of us. And I'm here to assure you that their situation gets worse on that front as well. So a little bit of a teaser there. But yes, a lot of times we actually just continue to think that the narcissist moved on to somebody else and they're better. The person they moved on to is better than we are, and they upgraded, and that person has all these traits and characteristics that are better than us, above us. And guys, that's not the case. Did a video recently on that. The narcissist didn't upgrade over you if you were a good person for their lives. They did not upgrade over you. And even if they did, they probably only did so in a way or two. Maybe a little bigger house, or maybe they had a little better job, or maybe, but they also lost a lot because you can't maximize every trait and every characteristic that a person has. But the narcissist thinks that you can. And so do a lot of people today in the world. We live in a culture that's so heavily narcissistic that people just don't think that enough is ever enough. You can find somebody who just checks all these boxes and you want somebody who checks more. Um, anyway, but the point of this video is we think that they go off and they improve when in reality they absolutely get worse and worse. One of my viewers, a good viewer of mine, Jill, thank you for the suggestion. She asked about the aging narcissist. So this is kind of connected to this. So one of the things that happens as it all goes downhill for the narcissist is their behavior flat out worsens. When they become a narcissist, and I've detailed when this roughly happens, which I believe is throughout their lives, but in the early to late teenage years is where that's really solidified. That's where they really become the narcissist. But from there, it only continues to get worse. Their behavior does. Because people who are willing to constantly lie, cheat on others, triangulate, do all manner of shady stuff, they're deceptive. Those sorts of practices do not gradually improve as time goes on. The only way that those things improve is if someone is on the narrow path, they're on the spiritual path, they're carrying their cross, they're following Christ, they're being spiritually transformed and renewed, they're having a renewing of their mind. That's the only way that bad traits or evil traits improve. So just stop right there. Is that even possible for the narcissist? The narcissist does not know God. Even the ones who fake it, they're just that, they're faking it. They can sit in church, doesn't matter. They can go to 1,000 church functions, doesn't matter. They can look like they're reading their Bible, irrelevant. They're frauds. But a lot of other narcissists will just tell you they believe in the universe, they're atheists, they hate God, they don't understand religion. Whatever it is, it depends, but the truth is none of them know the Lord at all. Their father is the devil. So no, their behavior is not going to improve. They're going to cultivate those same evil practices. They're going to manipulate a little better every relationship. They're going to lie a little better. They're going to have the playbook down that they're going to run on people a little better. There are all manner of stuff. And let me tell you something. The way that they approached you, even though they tweaked the mask, it was not novel for them, meaning it was not some totally new experience. When you meet a new person, we think, and it should be this way, that you communicate with them in their own unique way. That that relationship has its own intricacies, its own flow, and the way that you treat somebody is kind of different depending on the situation. They have such a playbook that they might do the same stuff to everybody. Say that the narcissist is talking with three different people at the same time, which is highly common and probably more than that. They might do things like they like to take a picture of their um, dashboard or their screen in their car playing a music song. And they've done this time and time and time again. And maybe that song is called What a Man. And they're going to take a picture of that and they're going to send it out to about three different people. And when you get it, you think you're special. They're telling you you're such a great man. But no, three other people or four other people or five other people got that too. Maybe they send pictures of themselves in the morning when they hold their coffee cups in a sweatshirt. And you think, oh, that's great. That's just sent to me. That's like a special thing we have. They like to send me a picture of their morning and say hello, and they're going to show me what cup they're using and some special little thing. That's not special. They do that with everybody. So, guys, the point is they get better at these things. They figure out what works and what doesn't work, what is most effective to draw you in. For the female covert narcissists, especially, they get really good at sending pictures of themselves or seductive sayings or flirtations. And they just build upon what has worked on people and they hone it and they craft it and they sculpt it. By the time you're dealing with one of these people in their late 20s, 30s, and onward, they've been through this rodeo over and over and over. They know how to manipulate people. They get better and better at it. The narcissist you met got better with you, and they took that to the next person and manipulated them even better. And they took that and manipulated. These people only get worse. Their behavior gets worse. Their tantrums, their silent treatment, the way they triangulate people, the severity to which they do that, the abuse, the criticism, the devaluation stage where they're just cutting, ripping, shredding, where you're walking on eggshells. The people down the road will walk on eggshells even more than you did. Yeah, their behavior gets worse. And as this happens, another thing occurs. Their spiritual life erodes. Whatever was left of their humanity that hadn't been taken over and given over to the demonic forces, that continues to deteriorate. They block themselves off from God more and more and more as time goes on. And yes, they become, most of them at some point, what we call reprobate. That is totally morally depraved, given over. They have a heart of darkness. God cannot penetrate, He cannot reach them any longer. And at some point, yes, He goes, you've chosen your path, narcissist. You've followed the path of your father, the devil, and you're going to go where he does at the end. Place we call Gehenna, the lake of fire, hell. Yes, I'm sorry to say. Their spiritual life deteriorates. They become more callous. They become more hardened. They have less empathy. They have less love within them as time goes on. These are creatures you don't want to be around, especially as they age. Almost the only way, and this is the truth, almost the only way a narcissist is going to have people around them consistently later in life, we're talking 50s, 60s onward, is if they have sufficient funds, they have the means. They have money, they have house, they have a will that's going to be lucrative. Then people who are spongers and moochers might stick around them just for the sake of what they can get from the narcissist. But those are the kinds of people that will remain. They don't love the narcissist. They're there to will dive. They're there to get what they can get. That's what happens to these people. So everything about them erodes. They become darker and blacker and meaner and more vindictive and less able to love. Go if you want to see what this kind of looks like, go look up on YouTube Daniel Plainview from a movie There Will Be Blood. Fantastic movie. Um, Absolutely one of the best depictions of a total narcissist you'll ever see in your life. So, throughout the course of this movie, the main character, Daniel Plainview, he just erodes. You really want to see it? Watch There Will Be Blood. Watch how he erodes as it goes on to the point where at the end, he is just the most callous person imaginable. Textbook narcissist. They may not all become to the extent that he does in the movie. By the way, Daniel Day-Lewis, probably my favorite actor of all time, unbelievable in that role. But they all get really bad. Other things that occur with the narcissist and why it all goes downhill. You cannot behave the ways that I'm describing and not have people figure you out. Absolutely. The narcissist will be figured out by everyone who matters throughout the course of their life as it goes on. Yes, we talk about frequently. The narcissist at work, for instance, they often go in and they've got their happy, gregarious, grinning ear to ear, and they're jovial and jokey, and everybody loves them at work. At least a lot of people do. Because that's where they're really, one of the places they're really got the act on the strongest. But guess what? The people from work that they kind of just casually interact with, they basically never get to know the narcissist. You know how it is to deal with people at work, even someone you're kind of work friends with, but you don't hang out, or at least not very often. You don't know them that well outside of work. You just see what you see. Seem like a good guy, seem like a good woman. The narcissist hides under that cloak while they're at work and other places, social events, church. Tons of narcissists sitting in a church near you, believe you me. But they can hide because the people don't know them very well. And they count on that. But anybody who does get to know them at all and is got a chance to have a meaningful part to play in their life, they will figure the narcissist out. You did. I did. You guys see how this works with the narcissist you dealt with. Their children figure them out. By the time they're of age, they sit and they think, well, why has mom had like 20 boyfriends and we always move around and we're always living with some other guy and it always seems to blow up? And even a child can understand, well, it can't always be the other person's fault, right? Plus, the child knows how they're treated. The narcissist is always abusing somebody. If it's not their significant other, then it's a child, or it's a friend, or it's a parent, or a sibling. They always have to be dumping their abuse onto another person at all times, 100% of the time. And people have enough. Almost everybody has a breaking point. The same point we got to. Even if you were discarded, chances are you were at a breaking point. You just couldn't pull the trigger. The narcissist beat you to it so that they could get one up and they could move on to somebody else and hopefully keep you there for a return visit, aka Hoover. So people figure them out. This is why they have to move jobs all the time. Oftentimes, the narcissist is a job to job to job to job to job to job. Not always. None of this stuff is universal. I have a couple narcissists in my extended family that they've been at their jobs a long, long time. And they've succeeded because people don't know them very well. Yet, tons of other people who do work with them a lot have figured them out and will tell you that's the worst person I ever worked with because they got to know them. Anyone who gets to know them ultimately leaves and probably smears them deservingly. This is why they always move too. They develop stalkers in the neighborhoods they live in because they flirt and they have little flings and relationships, and then that person doesn't get over them because that's how people are. So they have to move. They move their kids around, school to school to school. They're living with this person. Now they're living with that person. Some of them are with mom and dad, and they're 36, 37 years old, and they still live with their parents, except for when they're living with a significant other for some small period of time to get what they want. And then they're back in with mom and dad. And then they're. This is the narcissist. They lose their friends. They lose their children. And they lose every single meaningful relationship they ever have with anyone. They can literally be sitting in front of a person in a situation you can't even draw up. It's so perfect. They will blow it up every time, given enough time. And that person will figure them out. Most of them can't even fake it more than 2 or 3 months. And I think that gets less as time goes on. They just can't keep it up. It's too heavy. The mask, the fake. It's too hard for them. It's strenuous. It's burdensome to pretend to be this good person that they're so clearly not. It gets harder to keep the mask up as they go. Here's another way that's really interesting that maybe will bring some comfort to some of you guys, but I'm telling you this is a fact. The narcissist finds it much more difficult to attract new supply as they age. This is a big way it goes downhill for them. You don't think of it this way because the narcissist always has someone in the picture. It's true. Even somebody, I'm not trying to be mean, who's, let's just say they're very unattractive, they're still going to have other people in the mix. There's always going to be some people who will pine after the narcissist or be with them in some capacity because there's a lot of desperate people out there. But the narcissist absolutely loses their ability to have anybody that's worth anything as time goes on. You'll see them settling for folks later down the road that you're just like, oh, what? They were with me 5 years ago and I brought all this to the table and they blew it up and maybe they discarded you. And then you see them 5 years later somewhere like, that's who they're with? Wow. Wow. And the reason why it's a wow is because this is the bed they made for themselves. Nobody worth anything wants to be with these people as time goes on. The narcissist thinks that their beauty, their appeal, their charm, their charisma is going to last forever. They think that they are always going to be able to attract these wonderful people like you. Not the case. Not the case for anyone, especially the narcissist whose behavior gets worse. Yeah, their looks fade. They're very hard on their bodies most of the time. The last one I dealt with kind of prided herself on the fact that she never sleeps. She's up all night, all the time, just doesn't sleep. It's boring. Doesn't get to, as I understand, doesn't get to triangulate people, text with people, flirt with people, build up supply. I mean, what are you doing all night long if that's not what you're doing? So they stay up late and they run themselves ragged and they make many of them make such poor sexual decisions that things happen. So they also accumulate a ton of baggage. They go through so many relationships that yes, they're going to have periods of time where they have kids with certain people. And then years later, or some period later, more kids with another person. So by the time you met them, let's just say that they're 35 or something when you met them. By that time, they might have had 3 kids with multiple different people, lived with half a dozen people, had a dozen failed relationships that they tell you about. Maybe they've been engaged 2 or 3 times, may have been divorced 2 or 3 times. But so by the time they meet you and you start to uncover even a little bit of what has happened in their lives, more often than not, you're like, no thanks. No thanks. This is somebody who has basically told me they've been around the block, they've got a lot of failed relationships, they've got multiple kids with multiple people. No offense to you if you do. We're talking about the narcissist, not talking about you. Talking about the narcissist. And when you meet this person, you think, wow, this is so much baggage. They've lived all these different places. They've had all these different relationships. They've got multiple kids with multiple people. They hardly see this kid or that kid. But I'm going to start a relationship with this person. People of value don't want to mess with that. I don't. If you come in and your life is that filled with garbage, I don't want to deal with that. Do you? If you do, you need to raise your standards. You absolutely need to raise your standards for what you'll accept in your life. There aren't many good people out there these days, but there are some. And if you don't find one of them, then being alone is far better than being with one of these toxic nightmares. It is. Value yourself way more than to put up with that. So again, maybe when you're 25 and you met them, they're 25. Maybe they got one child with one person and a handful of broken relationships, and you're like, okay, well, things happen. Let's give it a shot. Meet that same narcissist 10 years later when they're 35. Maybe now they have 3 kids with 2 different people, and they've got over a dozen failed relationships and live-ins and engagements, and maybe a divorce or two. Whole different story, right? Fast forward another 10 years. Maybe that narcissist now has got 3 moms or dads in the picture. They've lived all over the place. They're a train wreck, a tattered history of failed and broken relationships. Do you want to deal with that? Does anybody of value want to deal with that? They don't. So the narcissist you're thinking of, are they always going to have somebody in the picture? Like I said, yeah, they're always going to have somebody, because there are a lot of people out there who don't have very many options, which isn't an excuse either. Because even if you don't have options, value yourself enough to only select a good option for yourself. Don't just make yourself available to anything that's there. It's better to be single. It's better to be alone than to be in one of those situations. Value yourself. If you have a trouble being alone, go to God. Say, Lord, we need to fix this. Help me to be good on my own. Help me to be good in you, that I don't need another person to be happy. And guess what usually happens? I'm not saying this always happens, but it usually happens. If you get yourself to the place where you are truly good on your own, especially in the Lord, you're truly good on your own, all of a sudden things start to occur. People start to come around. Options start to arise without even having to look for them, without even having to get on dating apps, never get on dating apps, without having to force things. All of a sudden, when you're in the right place in your life, you start to see that options emerge. You just meet people here and there. It's not all the time, maybe, but it'll happen for you most likely if you get yourself to the right place. Point is, the narcissist guys, their life is just going to keep going downhill. It absolutely is. You got to trust and believe this. For all the reasons I mentioned, they will be figured out. They have to be figured out, and they are. They will deteriorate physically, spiritually, and you better believe that their ability to attract valuable, good, solid supply sources, not going to be there. They have a finite period of time to do that. They really do. Because what ends up happening later on is the only people they can attract, because of their fading looks, which is all they ever had, most of them, they don't have anything else. Their charisma fades. They become curmudgeons more and more and more. Desperation sets in for the narcissist as they lose ability to get these supply sources. So they end up settling for things that they would never have settled for years ago. The beautiful, attractive 25-year-old single mother who could get a lot of good, valuable men. Fast forward 10 years, it's much less. Fast forward to when they're 45, nobody. Nobody who's worth a plug nickel is going to have anything to do with these people. If you are having something to do with these people, you need to raise your level. Raise your value in yourself and what you know about yourself. Don't put up with abuse. You can, I promise you, do infinitely better than whatever narcissist you're thinking of. And the narcissist, I promise you, will do far worse than you as time goes on. These people's lives are going downhill bit by bit, day by day. And guys, I didn't even talk about this, and I'm not going to, but the obvious. They're on a collision course with the judgment one day, where they're going to meet God, and they're going to be thrown into the same eternal destiny that Satan and the demons are. The worst awaits the narcissist, believe me. But I'm talking about in this life, their life also goes downhill. So if you are sitting back thinking, they got away with it, they got the better of me, they're with somebody great that's even an upgrade over me, their life seems to be going so well, promise you it's not, and it will decay and it will erode. Most of them will die alone. Most of them will die desperate, scared, and nobody will be around them except very, very low value people who are just there to use the narcissist. Sad reality. I don't take joy in this, guys. But since they are the way they are, take refuge in the fact that what I'm telling you is true. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this, drop comments below if you did. Appreciate every one of you, new subscribers, old subscribers. I will, of course, be at you with another one soon. And until then, God bless.